Hi and welcome to Terry Travels and welcome to Ballarat and more specifically Lake Wendouree, and we're in a park, as you can tell. We're going to take a look at the Prime Ministers of Australia, and there are busts of all of the Prime Ministers of Australia in this park, except the last two. They haven't done them yet. To be honest, the one before the current one was a shit, so it doesn't really matter about him. But we're going to go take a look at a lot of them. This is a very old school park. Here is Leader and the Swan. So you can take a look at her suckling a swan. Nice statue. It's from 1884 because Ballarat is a gold town. There were a ton of gold mines and gold diggings in Ballarat, and that made it quite a wealthy city in the 19th century, or at least at the end of the 19th century. So they decided to park it up and get everything done nicely. Here's a sequoia tree, a Sierra redwood, so you can go and take a look up that. Hang on, let me just adjust it so I can pan upwards. But yeah, I'm here to take a look at the Prime Ministers and anything else I can find in the area. Very old school, kind of European feeling park, this one. And I haven't been here before, really. I've been around the edge of it, I've driven around the edge of it, but haven't been here. So we're going to take a look at that. Get around, check out the Prime Ministers, take a look at a bit of Lake Wendouree and the black swans that live here. Because Australia only has black swans, the white ones don't tend to be our bag. But yeah, weather is shitty today. It's been raining coming up from Melbourne. It was pouring rain all the way along. So I'm going to take a break now and figure out where these Prime Ministers are. They're never around when you want them. Figured it out, they're in the opposite direction. I was walking the wrong way. But you know, I'm not from around here. So heading up past Leader again and her swan, of which she is inordinately fond. And we're going to go up and find some Prime Ministers. Yeah, it's only about 12 degrees here. It's been raining. The rain's held off for this bit of it. So I'm hoping to at least get a window and successfully check this out. It says the Prime Minister's Avenue is this way. So I'm going to risk it. Pop along here and just see what I can find. I could be wrong. But when have I not got lost doing these walks through a park or pretty much anywhere on this channel? So yeah, it's springtime. A few of the flowers are out. I think I'm underneath a tree now. I'm actually underneath two trees. And it's a very European park for somewhere in Australia, as you can see. And if we go up there, trees are pretty extensive, but it's not the usual kind of park we have in a modern context in Australia. We have a tendency to start using more local plants in the parks that we're developing now. You've seen that on the park in Werribee. It's all been local stuff, not imported European plants. It's very green, and that doesn't tend to be the natural environment of an Australian park. Very old school, very 19th century, this one. And I'm trying to do brisk walking because my doctor says I should. And we've come to a little sighting. The sensory garden. A sensory garden is essentially a garden designed to stimulate the sense of sight, sound, smell and touch. You're allowed to touch them. So that's kind of cool. Freeze frame on that. So there are things like, there's chocolate mint here. And I know chocolate mint tastes good, so I'm going to have a leaf. Yeah, I like chocolate mint. And there's lamb's ears. You get them for the feel of it because they do feel like a lamb's ears. Lemon balm, which smells great. Bower vine, which is a jasmine. Cotton lavender. I wonder if that smells like lavender. Yeah, it does. Cat mint, which I'm just going to pinch a bit of the cat mint for the cats. Alpine mint bush. So I'm going to just squeeze a bit of that. Oh yeah, that smells very minty, that one. Oh, that's a lovely smell. There's yarrow, holy flax, which I think is a curse. There you go. You stub your toe and go, holy flax. Curry plant. We used to have that in the backyard, but it got swallowed by something else. Another cat mint. Munstead lavender. Yeah, that smells very lavendery. Crepuscule rose. Russian sage. Greek oregano. Yarrow. Spearmint. I'm going to try a spearmint leaf. There's nobody around, nobody's going to whinge about it. And it is a sensory garden, so you're allowed to. Oh, the spearmint smells good. Tastes good too. Prostrate rosemary. I love rosemary. Common thyme. Common ice plant. Wax flower. That's supposed to be a zonta rose, but I think they've trimmed it back a bit. Bronze fennel. Fennel grows wild out at Werribee South near my place. And I love fennel. It just grows wild and you just pick it any time you like. Got some Spanish lavender. Choc mint pelargonium. Cool. There's a better zonta rose, but hasn't bloomed yet. More yarrow. Paper daisies, which grow a lot around locally. Wormwood. Cat mint again. Chives. Love chives. I've really got to get a pot of chives for the summertime. More lemon thyme and more sage. So let's see if we can find these bloody Prime Ministers. Can't see them yet, but they've got to be here somewhere. By the way, our Prime Minister has a meeting with Donald Trump tomorrow, which will probably go about as well as you'll expect. But we'll wait and see on that one. Yes, I'm looking at Prime Minister, so if the comments get political, that's the reason why. Here, I found the first Prime Minister, and it's Malcolm Bligh Turnbull, Prime Minister 2015 to 2018. Rich bastard, Liberal Party, but his policies were more in line with Labor, so they sacked him and replaced him with a monster called Scott Morrison. There he is. Not a bad likeness, to be honest. Here they are. We've got them zigzagged down this particular avenue. Who have we got next? We've got the Mad Monk, Tony Abbott, Anthony John Abbott. Total right-wing nutjob, Catholic fanatic, who now does talks to right-wing think tanks. And not a nice man. And we've got a statue of Autumn. So got a nice marble statue there. Much better than the unlovely heads of Prime Ministers. Next up we get to the woman who was my local Member of Parliament and a good Labor Prime Minister who got shafted and got treated very badly, particularly by Conservative politicians. Julia Gillard. Prime Minister from 2010 to 2013. They've named a local library after her. Nobody in my area who isn't a right-wing nutjob has a bad thing to say about Julia Gillard, and her prime ministership's being re-evaluated a lot in the context of modern history. So then we get over here to Kevin Rudd, who was her predecessor and also the Prime Minister after her. There was a bit of a kerfuffle with the Labor Party, and they had a pissing competition on who was going to be Prime Minister, and Rudd defeated Julia Gillard after she defeated him. It was a whole thing. It was a little reality television, but very small head for Kevin Rudd there. Now we get to another arsehole, John Winston Howard, who was Prime Minister from 1996 to 2007, ruined the country, opened the gates for right-wing nutjobs and racists to get a seat at the table of our democracy. This bastard got me the sack because I was working for the Commonwealth Employment Service in the 90s, and when his government got in, they had me sitting at a desk for a year before they gave me a redundancy package, and they totally destroyed the government-owned employment service. He's basically another Labor Prime Minister, Paul John Keating. I have something in common with Paul Keating, and that is we both left school at 15. Prime Minister 1991 to 1996. Most people don't know that he was actually a genie in a bottle. You can see the bottle there. Then we get to Hawke, Robert James Lee Hawke, another Labor Prime Minister from 83 to 91. Very effective political guy. Screwed around a lot too. Did a lot for the country. And was incredibly popular because he could scull beers really quickly. And we come to another turd here, Malcolm John Fraser, who helped the Governor General destroy the government of his predecessor. Posh Toff, Prime Minister from 75 to 83. Totally undistinguished human being. Posh accent, no brain. Then we get to another person who was my local member when I was living in Sydney. Prime Minister from 72 to 75. First Labor Prime Minister in a long time, Edward Gough Whitlam. And Gough was a legend. He changed Australia. He got us universal health care. He got us out of Vietnam. He got rights for women, particularly when it comes to wage equality. Really, he did so much in 3 years that it pissed off the right-wing people, and also the British royal family, who are ultimately the rulers of Australia still, because we're not a republic yet. But yeah, Gough was a legend. And here we got another marble statue, this time Summer. Another 1884 statue with a sheaf of wheat in her hands. And then we get to Billy McMahon, really weak Prime Minister. They say he's the worst Prime Minister we ever had. And the strong rumour is that he was a closeted gay man who didn't have the guts to come out of the closet. Married late and had kids because he was told that he should to further his political career. And as you can see, the pigeons don't like him particularly. Really a do-nothing Prime Minister. Then we get to John Gorton, who was kind of okay for a Liberal Prime Minister. Had his face mutilated a bit in an accident in World War II. Prime Minister from 68 to 71. He also got rid of a lot of film censorship in Australia. So, not particularly a bad guy, but not particularly a good one either. And then we get to person who was Prime Minister for a total of only a few weeks, John McEwen. From 19th of December 67 to 10th of January 68. Might as well have not have unpacked his desk. So he gets a go because he was technically Prime Minister in between everything else. Then we get to Harold Holt, 66 to 67. Another person who put his leg over a lot. Drowned off Cheviot Beach here in Victoria, and they never found the body. So a lot of people think a Chinese submarine got him, but it didn't. They named a swimming pool after him in the eastern suburbs of Melbourne. So there's a Harold Holt Memorial Swimming Pool dedicated to the only Prime Minister who drowned. Then we get to one of the true legends as Prime Minister. Ben Chifley, Joseph Benedict Chifley, Prime Minister from 45 to 49, at the end of World War II and in the post-war period. He's got a bit of water dripping off his ear, I'll get rid of that. Used to be a train driver, good working class Prime Minister. Why did they skip Menzies? Menzies isn't here, maybe somebody stole Menzies. His predecessor during most of the World War II was this guy, John Curtin, from 41 to 45. He's the person who told Winston Churchill, piss off, we're bringing our soldiers back to the Japanese war front, when Churchill wanted Australian soldiers not to go back and defend Australia, but to keep defending Europe. And Curtin went, no way, pal. So, another legend. Here's another short-term Prime Minister, Francis Michael Ford, 6th to the 13th of July 1945. He was Prime Minister in a caretaker capacity very briefly. Nobody knows anything about him. He's Pig Iron Bob, also known as Ming the Merciless. Longest serving Prime Minister in Australia from 1939 to 41 and 49 to 66. Royalist arsehole, really. He sucked up to Queen Elizabeth. He basically kept Australia in the 19th century for as long as possible. Sold iron to the Japanese just as World War II was starting, which is why he was named Pig Iron Bob. And he was a cruel bastard, so they called him Ming the Merciless. And here we go, another one of the worst Prime Ministers. Only in 1941, Arthur William Fadden, Artie Fadden. Totally do-nothing Prime Minister. Bit of a political joke, really. And here's our current season statue. Spring. Another statue from 1884. There is Spring. Beautiful marble statue. I like that one. I like it a lot better than I like a lot of the Prime Minister statues. 1939, we had a brief Prime Minister again. Earl Christmas Grafton Page. Prime Minister from 1939. Nobody remembers anything about him, apart from one of his middle names was Christmas. So let's keep going because we're getting back into the start of the 20th century. Joseph Aloysius Lyons, and only in the early part of the 20th century would you have a middle name like Aloysius. 1932 to 1939. Had a good head of hair for a Prime Minister, really. Then we get up to 1929 to 1932, during the start of the Depression. Did nothing to help. James Henry Scullin, born locally in Trawalla. Another Prime Minister with a reasonable head of hair. 1923 to 1929, we had Stanley Melbourne Bruce. Know nothing about him, because early 20th century Prime Ministers I'm not that great with. Heading into the last half a dozen or so, so bear with me on this. Andrew Fisher, Prime Minister 3 times, 1908 to 1909, 1910 to 12, 1914 to 15, couldn't keep a job. But he did have a really good moustache. I mean, check out the tash on that. He could be a barista. 1913, 1914, just before the start of the First World War, we had Joseph Cook. No relation to Captain Cook. But, you know, I like Prime Ministers with a beard, even if the pigeons don't like them. That's a great greenhouse over there, by the way. I like that. George Houston Reed, Prime Minister from 1904 to 1905. He really needed to trim his moustache a bit better, didn't he? Get your act together, George. Next up, we've got a Prime Minister who was the Prime Minister in 1904 and was also a friend of Sherlock Holmes, John Christian Watson. Nice beard, nice head of hair. No, nothing about him apart from the fact that he was at Rykerbark Falls. So we're on to the last two now. Alfred Deakin, who was a local Member of Parliament, Prime Minister from 1903 to 1904, 1905 to 1908, 1909 to 1910, and then died of dementia. And then we get to the first one, Prime Minister from 1901 at the start of Federation to 1903, Edmund Barton. Another guy with a good head of hair. And first Prime Minister of Australia, but we didn't build any monument to him apart from this. So there are all the Prime Ministers of Australia except the last two. So I'm going to head back to the car now and see what else I can find in Ballarat, apart from the avenue of Prime Ministers. There are some people who have defaced various of these busts of Prime Ministers for their own personal reasons of various times. But I don't think you should. Leave them be. History's going to judge them better than you can with a sledgehammer and a can of paint. So, yeah, let's go somewhere else and see what else we can see, because that's what the vlog's about.